so bad, I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door.
Let's kind of dive in to some of the things that I think are happening and why I believe that to be mostly true, if not precisely what's going on. I would tell you we're coming from a system based on unseen hands controlling a marketplace and controlling outcomes through how money is allocated, how money is regulated, essentially paying their friends, lining their own pockets. And we're trying to break free from that by creating an era of transparency, which is what blockchain was supposed to be about from the get-go. So finite, immutable, unalterable records. And today we're probably going to maybe tear apart some of those notions and make sure what we're looking at is clean data that is transparent, and perhaps help us understand that the marketplace, at least as it pertains to price, is no longer real. So I first figured this out some time ago when I was trying to understand the disconnect between what I thought was strong fundamentals and adoption and pricing mechanisms, which led me to try to understand back in middle of 2022 just precisely how those pricing mechanisms worked, and that led me to, of course, CoinMarketCap, which is where we're at right now, who provides the market price that most applications and or even traders use to, come up with their trend analysis and or trade strategies and all that sort of stuff. But when I looked at it, I of course was looking for or from the lens of trust but verify. And what I found was there was very little in the way of verification. So we're going to take just a couple of moments and we're going to look at Bitcoin specifically here. But where I sort of figured this out was when I was diving into Digibyte, and I'll pull up some instances of that when we get into the Explorer here in just a moment. But so let's take a look at Bitcoin specifically. You can see the quote-unquote price is $42,521 US. And that is derived by a number of things, but it is based on the volume weighted asset pricing basket of all of these exchanges that report their trading activity over the course of the last 24 hours. And that is through essentially an open API, so application interface, essentially, that they can report these values to CoinMarketCap, which then does the calculations to determine the market price based on quote-unquote market activity. So in this instance, you saw me just sort those volume over the last 24 hours by the reported total volume that they say they've done. And so you can see BitHum here is reporting to be the number 2 spot market for Bitcoin. You can see UEEX, BitTrue, Bika, and Cytex, all of which are exchanges I've never heard of or seen, are all reporting to be here in the top 10 in total spot volume, which is, serves two purposes. You can see CoinMarketCap is actually excluding, that's what these two asterisks are here, Bika, Cytex, and UEEX from those from that volume weighted asset pricing market basket, and they're giving them a confidence rating of moderate, in this case BitHum low or moderate. And so that's supposed to give them less of an impact in their ability to set a market price. But I would tell you, if we sorted this out by moderate and low, a good portion of the volume is by untrustworthy centralized exchanges, just reporting values. CoinMarketCap is actually also telling us that there are no reserve data being shared from these exchanges. So that is, they offer no proof that they actually have any Bitcoin that they're issuing or selling in the spot market. So that's always interesting and fun. And then you can look over here, you can see the number of, or the volume of Bitcoin traded in the last 24 hours. In this case, is 15.5 million. Well, this was the case back for Digibyte as well. It kind of looked pretty similar. We had an instance where one exchange essentially was sharing order books with another exchange, and they were always reporting or over-reporting their activity by 3 times because they were all reporting the exact same values. We eventually worked to get that all removed, and that reduced our volume, quote unquote, in the marketplace somewhat significantly. And but I noticed at that time there was something else occurring, and this was really 2022 when I first figured it out. Then I went back and looked through 2021 and saw that there was a significant change in terms of how the marketplace was interacting with crypto, and it became more about gambling essentially than any speculation of the underlying asset valuation. So you heard me start to talk about monetizing volatility, and really that's what we've seen in the marketplace since. We've seen this perpetuals market take off, and we actually have a large number of participants on the perpetual market, more so than what we actually see in the spot market. And I'll sort this back out here. You can see UEEX still reporting to be number 2 in the marketplace. This is a newer one. Bittrex, Digifinix, whoever that is, also reporting to some $3 billion. But some really big numbers here, and the math I'm going to do kind of simply with you is kind of the number I look at. So anytime there's 5 times more volume being done in the perpetual market than the spot market, you can pretty much say the brakes are on, and we're not going to be moving up anytime soon. When that number drops into about the 3-to-1 range, we're about to take a leg up. Or if we've overcorrected and we're starting to see a drop, which is kind of what happened December of 2022, there's not a lot of perpetual trading at all as they try to stabilize the price point. But that's kind of how they print the trend. Not necessarily based on market activity, which we're going to see when we switch over to Masari here and we watch the activity in the coins. But I just want to pause for just a second here. We're going to do a little math. So number 1 volume reported exchange in perpetuals is Bluebit. They're reporting to 11,185 million. So we'll just stick with those round numbers here. And this is going to give us, when we divide by the 12.69%, the total volume of the perpetual market, which is 88,140 million. And then so we'll divide this lovely 15,570 here, and that's going to give us our multiple. So right now, 5.66 to 1. That is the ratio of perpetual to spot. If we look at the chart, then what we'll see is we have this nice little range, and this has been the case pretty much the entire time. As I say, the brakes are on, right? So the brakes are on here, and we're not going to see a lot of volatility here in this moment. Once that perpetual market changes, then we'll see volatility in either direction based on what they're doing. So they can, that number is pushed as high as 7 to 1. It's dropped as low as 2 to 1. And ultimately, those are just reported values. And why I keep saying reported values is because the way the system works, there's no means to verify that what these exchanges are reporting to happen is what actually happens. So it's just fake money. It's kind of like the defense budget, or paying back more money in interest than we pay for the total U.S. defense budget. Same idea. So they can report whatever the hell they want. It's kind of like CPI data, right? So they can report whatever they want. Jobs data, they just report whatever they want. So essentially we're allowing that to occur even here on Bitcoin, which is this unassailable technology. Well, this is the attack. It's a reporting attack, and it's used to impact belief and adoption and slow transitions, not just from a negative perspective, but also from a positive perspective. Early on, this was used, the wash trading was used to get it on the radar of people, and now it's being used to kind of slow down the transition. But as we look at the coins, that's a whole different matter. So we'll just drop in here real quick to Bitcoin and try to look at some of both how the coins are moving, and then I wanted to drop in and take a look at addresses specifically, and we'll talk through a little bit about how even that data is being misrepresented quite frequently. So let's drop down into the active supply here, and let's pop over to the 5-year active supply over the last 5 years, and we'll blow that up here. And so what we're looking at now is the number of coins that have moved in a rolling 5-year window, and I use that 5-year window for Bitcoin because that takes us back, well past the last all-time high and the lead up to the all-time high. So you can see, even going into the all-time high, that number was, we're not there yet. Sorry. Let's go to 5-year. Whoop, there we go. Oh, I don't want to start over. Okay. So you can see, even going into the all-time high, which I believe I have to pull it up. Don't make me pull it up. I'm going to pull it up. So I'm sorry, I'm trying to record all this without having to go back at all. So that's fun. We'll go back to snapshot. I think that has our all-time high on there. Yeah, so all-time high, November 10th, 2021. Back to supply. Back to the 5-year. I hate that it switches views on me. All right, so we can see that that all-time high is right in here, right there. So there's your all-time high. So you can see that leading up to it, the number of coins that were active significantly higher than where we're at right now. So what does that mean? That means right now there's about 1.2 million less Bitcoin in circulation over the period of 5 years than there was at the time that we hit our all-time high. So although the price trend, of course, is much different than what we saw then, the coins are actually much more solidly held than they were leading up to the all-time high. So there's not going to be too many people selling into this. And the other factor here is Bitcoin halving. So in April of 2024, we're going to reduce the amount of coins that are extracted by half on a daily basis, right? So what we'll see is this lovely little active coins in the marketplace, which has this really nice kind of bell curve look to it. We're going to start to see the other side of this, the other side of this curve as the halving approaches, which just means coins are going to get locked up, and it's going to be less and less liquid in the marketplace. At some point, price will have to kind of coincide with the supply shock that's coming. If people figure out that in order to actually participate in this marketplace in the way it was designed, you're going to have to control your coins and get them off of an exchange, because ultimately, if we're leaving them on exchanges, they're just paper Bitcoin, and the market can report whatever they want to report, just kind of like what we saw on CoinMarketCap, and the price trend will do pretty much whatever somebody else wants it to do, versus actually finding any sort of free marketplace where supply and demand balance one another out. Before we leave here, we're going to jump into Digibyte. I wanted to take a look at address creation and what it means and how it's used presently versus how it probably should be used. So we're going to look at a number of addresses that hold 1,000 Digibyte or more, because there's some rather telling sort of moments in time here that I want you to see. So a lot of times folks will talk about the number of addresses as though it were an accurate description of the adoption. And while that might be true to an extent, I think if we look at, say, over here, in 2019 all the way to 2024, we can kind of see a trend. And that would probably be more users in the marketplace with addresses. The number, if we looked at just the raw numbers, 117,000 versus 160,000, but we can't assume those are all like individual users that have, found the holy grail of blockchain, which is Digibyte. Instead, we see a couple other things going on here. So this piece right here. So we're gonna flip over to an Excel spreadsheet here in a little bit. We'll talk through some of the Binance addresses. But what we see here is this run up of addresses here, right? So we go from let's see, where's our all-time high? Right there, somewhere around May, late May. 171,000 all the way up to 181,000. So we gained like 10,000 addresses in the midst of the all-time high, right? And then in January here, we dropped from 180 to 161 in 1 week, right? So we shed 18,000 addresses that hold 1,000 digibyte or more. Well, that's not retail users like just consolidating all of their funds down, right? That is Binance, 100%, right? So Binance was breaking out the coins into lots and lots of addresses and then consolidating them all back down and mixing them kind of at the same time. And then we see them do it further. Basically, they kind of come back to the trend line here. And there's a couple of reasons to do so. Some of them are legit, like just security, right? It's good protocol, like to clean up your UTXOs and kind of backtrack all the history and kind of put it in the past, so that when you're looking at a UTXO, it looks nice, it's clean. It doesn't have a lot of Poloniex history to it. But I'm not going to dive into that. But I just wanted to kind of cover why address counts should not be used, because a lot of what you see is just exchange activity, specifically as it relates to UTXOs and how they work because of how exchanges mix them within their own infrastructure. And we can't do that easily at our level. There's some new tools and software available to do so, but the level of sophistication of an exchange software handling of addresses is much greater than what we've got available to us. But I just want to take a few looks at some of what that looks like on chain. So we're going to drop over to my favorite blockchain explorer, Crypto ID, and take a look at a few things. One of which is, of course, the rich list, which I hope you guys find this useful and helpful. Basically having the ability to trace your own transactions, maybe even back to the exchange addresses, and then kind of see the relationships between their storage addresses and their hot wallets and all that sort of stuff. And then you can, understand how anonymous your transactions are. I would tell you this: if you are looking at your own address and you want to remain anonymous, you probably shouldn't do it just in a regular browser searching your balance over and over again. That's probably a real bad idea. Use the Tor browser at the very least. But I digress. Okay, so you got all these other addresses here. I would tell you, highlight of this is this top 100 sitting at about 45% of the coins held in those addresses. Man, that hasn't changed in like 2 years, right? So that's pretty much been the same, maybe plus or minus, 1 or 2%. Same thing with top 1,000. So the distribution is largely the same. And so when I look at user adoption, for me, it's a little disappointing, obviously, because I've been focused on self-custody for a very long time now and felt like I have not made a significant impact because we have a lot of people that are still housing their crypto on exchanges, and that worries and concerns me ultimately because I don't want this to just become another legacy banking system, and I do want it to develop into something more peer-to-peer related, so that we can retain some of the original functionality of crypto, which was to be essentially permissionless, immutable, unalterable records, right? So that we can share a public ledger and we don't have to trust each other, that we can operate in a trustless environment, and trusting all these exchanges just seems like a real bad idea based on kind of what we've seen over the years. I did want to take a look at one exchange that really points to potentially why we wouldn't want to necessarily trust even some of the things that we see going on chain, right? So, we talk about swimming in the dark, and the difference between the legacy system, in which dark pools and things like BlackRock and Fidelity and all of the sophisticated high frequency trading that occurs like in the stock market, has like screwed over the legacy system to a shocking degree. But now we move into this new era where blockchain is supposed to help us overcome some of those things, but we find is also being manipulated. And where does that leave us as retail users? Well, I think the best outcome I could hope for is that we continue to educate and look for bedrock truths, right? So that's why I spend as much time looking at blockchain transactions as I possibly can, and over time I have found that generally speaking, I find something new every day, right? And have a different understanding every day. And sometimes I've been wrong about what I thought I knew, only to come back with some new information and see it differently. That's why I interact with so many different groups and so many different protocols who all freely share information and learn something new, like every day. So I'm hopeful that discussing it with you guys, you have the similar experience and you start to share with others to use the blockchain as intended. Speaking of which, so I just pulled up this lovely address here, and I shared this address. It's a set of 4 addresses, so you can see the unknown, related, hot, hot, blah, blah, blah. That's all one exchange. Not sure who, think I know, but I haven't been able to confirm with transactional data, so I'll not speculate. But I would tell you they popped on the scene in 2023, became instantly the #1 on-chain volume exchange for Digibyte that has ever existed. So this one address, and there are 4 of them, has done as much volume as Binance, KuCoin, and Crypto.com combined. So that's crazy, right? And there's 4 of them, and they all do roughly the same volume. So it's all systematic fracturing of UTXOs into smaller value UTXOs. You can see this 86,000 Digibyte UTXO went out. 855 stopped in a new fresh address. 85,615 came back to an exchange, which is the same exchange here. Same idea. You can see it happen over and over and over again. You see all these transactions all look pretty much the same. If we went back in time, so let's do that. Let's flip the script. You can see it started up here August 26th of 2023. You can see where this comes from. Oh, look, it all comes from Binance. All of it come from Binance. Blah, 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 blah. And then we start to look at some of these transactions as to where the funds go. So we'll follow this through its chain real quick. It drops into this lovely sort of consolidation address. You can see 43 million has passed through this address. Still active today. 4 hours and 32 minutes ago was its last transaction. You can see incoming deposits and automated sends. So this looks all very automated. You can tell just by the same value of the transactions going in and out. So it's just a pass-through address, carries 0 balance. Let's take a look. Let's see where it goes. And lo and behold, pretty much every one of these is going to go right back to Binance. And you can see sometimes it's going to get consolidated with other UTXOs, but it'll all just make its way back to the Binance hot wallet every last time. And this is true of the other 4 addresses as well. And you see sometimes they mix in some other low value UTXOs as they move that all back onto an exchange. So what we find is it's just a part of their mixing infrastructure, but they're doing it off exchange through a third party exchange. Again, kind of just like a layer of I'm not gonna speculate, but it's definitely trying to obfuscate what's occurring, and they're using the blockchain to do it in this regard, but it's kind of blatantly obvious as to what they're doing, because ultimately there's no other exchange that's processing this much in volume, and how they're doing it with small value UTXOs, like actually fracturing these UTXOs, splitting them into thousands of addresses, then only to later consolidate them and bring them right back into the hot wallet. I mean, there's really only 1 or 2 reasons to do that. So there's that. This happens, by the way, for Litecoin, Doge, and Bitcoin as well. So it's not unique to Digibyte. Digibyte just happens to be very good at it because it is a very good protocol to use for things like this, because it is very fast, very inexpensive to operate on, and secure. So it's a great way to move money around. So there you go. All right, let's go back to something a little less crazy talk, right? Wanted to take a moment and talk about bedrock truths, right? And why blockchain matters in terms of that's not even a word. How to basically kind of remove some of the haze that is out there and allow us to look right into the transactions and trust one another, so to speak. So we'll go to digibyteseed.com and we can find the seeders that right now are currently being set up to get prepared for 8.22 to make sure that the network propagates and you can find a good peer when you run your own node. So these seeders are always listening for nodes coming online and essentially creating a database internally within the network that they're going to share with any new node coming online, looking for peers so that it can download a new copy of the blockchain. And you can see the block height of these nodes, where they're at. And some of them are not, exactly caught up just yet, but they will catch up over time here. They'll all sync out. That's where all these confirmations and everything comes from, is all of these nodes talking to one another and validating all the transactions and blocks that are broadcast are good, and then recording them in perpetuity into the blockchain, so that through a mining transaction, through a new block, so that we can know exactly what happened in time, over time, right? So pretty cool. I want to thank in this moment Mr. John Jang. You can see him on here. Where's he at? There he is. John Jan 88 for setting this whole thing up. Pretty impressive, and truly enjoy just kind of poking around here to see the health of the network, right? And then it's got some great instructions here on how to participate and linking up to all of that. But very cool. Well, I'm going to wrap up here. I know I covered a lot. I did so unscripted today, and that's always a danger in itself, because on occasion I will follow a rabbit hole. But what I really want to do to get from the conversation today is there are tools that exist to help us see through the bullshit and maybe look at data in a way that helps us get an accurate picture of what's going on in the marketplace, and to question what's being presented to us, because ultimately that packaged analysis is often something someone wants us to believe versus what is actually occurring. And I think if you're on crypto Twitter with me at all, you've probably seen that play out with these influencers, with these exchanges, even with the regulators saying one thing and doing something completely different, right? So, Jamie Dimon being the most recent example, basically saying that, if he were in charge of the government, he would just shut crypto down and make it illegal, only to find out, later that that JP Morgan is on, BlackRock's ETF campaign, so it's kind of funny, right? How that works out. But I'm betting Peter Schiff even has some Bitcoin at this point. The market's not real, is the other piece I want to kind of give you. And it's not real from a perspective of, some folks have said it's not real and it's going to zero. I think of like Capo, and projecting that it's like being pumped up by, USDT and all that sort of stuff. And that's certainly probably been true at points in its history. But at this point, I think we've escaped that. And now the market's not real in the sense that the price valuation is not necessarily indicative to what's going on chain, which is why I wanted to just cover a few of those things and perhaps maybe make you more curious, ask some questions of me, and I'll dive in here and again to give more details. So I apologize for my craziness, but thank you for listening, and thanks Bitcoin Live for allowing me to have a platform, right, to just talk through these sorts of things and project ideas out into the ether, so to speak. The challenge is going to be, and will always ever be, presenting this in a way that makes sense. And I feel like I need questions to answer, because I come up with all sorts of questions, and unfortunately the solutions are rarely straightforward. It takes a tremendous amount of imagination to think like a criminal and understand how I would use all of these different mechanisms to manipulate something at scale. But I think ultimately all of us are feeling and becoming more aware of the propaganda that exists in all realms that we interact with, whether it's in our healthcare, in geopolitics, certainly in our finance sector, and the tools that we need to create some clarity to the situation do exist, but they are going to require a bit more due diligence. So with that, I'll just say thanks again for listening in, and hope to see you soon.